Hello, ladies. I hope that your day is going well and struggle love free. In this video, I want to talk about when settling goes wrong, the importance of knowing our worth and value. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified every time that I upload a video and like the video. In this video, I want to talk about why it's so important that we not engage in settling. Settling is the enemy of our leveling up, of our living an enhanced life, of our achieving our vision, our goals, our objectives. Settling is something that we should never engage in or acquiesce to. So to avoid settling, it's very important that we have a firm foundation of knowing our worth and knowing our value. Because when we know our worth, when we recognize our value, when we see that God has a purpose for our lives, and we therefore set firm standards and boundaries that we don't deviate from, that we don't dismantle, that we don't equivocate about, then we can stay on the path. So often, what can happen if we do not have a firm standard, a boundary, a criteria for romantic relationships? What can happen is that we can settle for far less than what we deserve. We can settle for a relationship that does not meet our objectives in life. We can settle for a relationship that quickly becomes a headache, that is a liability and not a benefit. And there may be a number of different reasons that we engage in settling. It can be that we have been taught this culturally. It can be that we have been taught this from family, friends, peers. It can be that our low self-esteem that we have not addressed makes us believe that we cannot do any better. What can also happen is that we may be an empath. We may be a woman who feels that we like to fix things. So unfortunately, we take on a project in a relationship and we become Barbara the Builder. We begin to do all of these things to help a man achieve goals when he should already have goals of his own before he enters into a relationship. Now, of course, in a relationship, in a healthy, productive, functional dynamic, in a relationship where there is reciprocity, where two people are enhancing each other's lives versus a one-sided relationship, certainly, each person can help the other in achieving goals, but you should not have to instill a goal. Be the person who's precipitating goals. As a woman, we should not be linking up with a man who does not have goals, who does not have vision, who is not already stable, who does not already have an idea of what he wants to achieve in life, who's not already having a spiritual foundation. This is a recipe for disaster. What has played out time and time again is that when we are a very driven woman, when we are a successful woman, when we are a woman who has achieved a lot, who has had a high level of success or are in the process of achieving high success, and we link up with a man who is not focused, we can become involved with someone who is going to be very jealous and actually resentful of the success that we garner. Now, that doesn't mean that he won't be interested in obtaining resources from us. He may very well be interested in obtaining resources while simultaneously despising us, literally despising us, and there can be a high level of jealousy. This can become even more problematic if we decide to leave the relationship and he no longer has access to those resources. That is why it's very important for us to be properly aligned when we're in a relationship, to not become involved with someone who is discordant to what our goals and our mindset and our mentality and our core values are. The vetting process is something that I will never eschew, because it's so very important that we do vetting and screening. In every facet of life, vetting and screening is done, because you cannot just automatically believe a person's story. You have to use wisdom and discernment. You have to confirm if who someone presents themselves as is who they truly are, because there can be a representative that's sent. So if we are a woman that is driven, who has ambition, if we have goals, if we have a vision, if we have objectives that we want to achieve, even if we're not there yet, it's very important that we are aligning with a man who is spiritually stable, who has a spiritual foundation, who is financially stable, who has a vision, who has goals, who is ambitious, who is responsible, reliable, where we know that he is truthful, where he is transparent, where we're not going to have to engage in games, and where we are not going to have to be the catalyst for him to be driven in his life. It's important to be with a man who is like-minded, who is someone who enhances our life, the same as he wants us to enhance his life, that it is a relationship of reciprocity. So often the stories that we hear playing out, unfortunately, in the news, where a tragedy has occurred, is that a woman has become aligned by settling with a man who has a discordant life path, who has a different level of integrity, different core values, who is a man who is dependent upon her for resources. And when she tries to extricate herself from the relationship and withdraw these resources, tragedy unfortunately ensues. Or there's just a lot of difficulty with her being able to unentangle herself from this relationship, to disengage from the relationship. So better to not get involved in that relationship in the first place than to have trouble extricating ourselves from these relationships. And we can do that by taking our time, using that wisdom and discernment, and doing the vetting process to determine if this relationship is really one that we should be engaging in. Being Barbara the Builder, trying to have a man that is a project, having a relationship that's a project, is not going to benefit us. It is going to be a drain in many different ways upon us. It is a liability and not an asset. And I know for women that have been taught to engage in struggle love, thank God that women are waking up more, but there's enough different TikTok videos and videos on social media that show that there's still work to be done, whether it's women 20, 40, or 60, because this has been ingrained and socialized, and not for every woman, but for enough women. This idea of struggle love and being Barbara the Builder and being involved in non-reciprocal one-sided relationships has been socialized and ingrained enough that there's still work to be done. And it's important that we know our worth, that if we are not healed from low self-esteem, that we receive that healing. It's important that if we think that a relationship is a project, that we shift our mindset. We shift our mindset from taking on projects. Because what we have not been taught, for the most part, is that when we take on a relationship that's a project, and when we try to be Barbara the Builder, there's a lot of resentment that ensues. And that can bring on a lot of problems for us when we decide to be Barbara the Builder. There's so many different things that we can use our energy and time for if we want to do a project other than having a relationship project. We can volunteer, we can help with family or friends who are in need, but that are respectful of our time and our energy, and as we are led, invest in terms of helping with projects in our community, with helping with, perhaps we have a ministry we're going to start, maybe there's a nonprofit we're going to start, it could be a business that we're going to start, but the impetus is helping. So there are many projects that we can engage in. A relationship should never be a project. Being Barbara the Builder, the come up woman, let alone the placeholder, being a woman who has to incentivize a man to be ambitious, this is a path that can be very problematic and detrimental to us. The level of resentment and jealousy that can come when we are not only unequally yoked spiritually, but financially. When we are unequally yoked in terms of careers and in terms of successful attainment in terms of our careers. We have not been taught the level of resentment, jealousy, and anger that can ensue when we settle, when we date down, when we are unequally yoked financially and in terms of our career attainment. It's very important that we understand that so that we are not led to be involved in a relationship that ultimately doesn't serve us, where we are settling, where we are on two different pages, where there is resentment that we may not be recognizing, where we're being Barbara the Builder, where it's a project relationship. We don't have to ever settle in a relationship, no matter what we may have seen in the media, if we have been socialized this way, if we have been groomed into struggle of, if we have seen it play out, if we have even experienced it in our life. We can turn the page. We can shift gears. We can shift our paradigm. We do not have to involve in struggle of. Barbara the Builder. We do not have to settle. We do not have to, even though we are empathetic, we do not have to engage in relationships that are beneath our standard and beneath the level of what we should be engaging in a relationship. And this can be especially true for women that are involved in the medical field. If we are, for an example, a nurse, there are men that specifically look to nurses because there is not only a nurse involved, but there's a purse. And because we have a high level of empathy that we can be preyed upon because of that. But even if we're not in the nursing profession, just having a empathetic nature, being compassionate, we have to be very mindful and careful in terms of how we move in relationships, that we are not being preyed upon because of that empathy. We want to be involved with a man who is looking out for us, not looking to prey upon us. We want to be engaged with a man who is stable in every facet of his life, but also wants to enhance our life, is not just looking for us as a come up or to be a resource provider. We want to be with someone who is on our level, or in a hypergamous situation is on a higher level, but certainly not the settling down, certainly not the Barbara the Builder, certainly not the taking on a relationship as a project. When we meet a man, he should already have that spiritual foundation, that financial stability, already be goal-oriented and ambitious, and already be making these moves in his life. It should not be something we instill, because if we have to instill it, there is in all likelihood going to be resentment down the road. It may not present itself immediately, but it will occur at a later date. We don't ever have to be in a relationship where we are desperate, where we are thirsty, where we are having a pick-me spirit operating. We can have a great understanding. It's important that we know our worth, that we know our value, that we understand that we can be happily single, or if we're going to be in a relationship, that we can take our time to vet, to screen, and make sure that it's a relationship that's really enhancing our life and where we're not taking on a project. We deserve better than that. Let me know what you think in the comments beneath the video. As always, be blessed, continue to level up, stay far away from settling and the struggle of matrix, because you deserve better.